First things first, let's create your driver.
Jackson.
And now let's focus on your driver's look.
Get in there, Jeff. Get in.
Great, that's everything we need. You can go back and edit anything we've done so far, and we'll come back here at the start of each season. But if you're ready to go, hit advance to head to Team HQ, and we can start our push to the top of Formula 1.
Hello folks, and welcome to Paddock Pass, your pre-race edition for this, the inaugural round of the 2021 Formula 1 World Championship. And I've got to say, it feels great to be back. As is tradition, there is something of an air of a first day back at school on arrival here. But it's more than that. It's a breath of fresh air. It's an element of normality in what has at times felt to be something of an abnormal world. Now, we were supposed to have a raft of new regulations this season, but as we know, they've been held back. Which does give all of these teams the opportunity to have a second bite at the cherry, one final chance to show what they can do in this era of Formula 1. But the responsibility for results, as always, falls on the drivers. But with the cars at their disposal this year being very similar to the cars they had at their disposal last year, succeed, and they of course will put it all on themselves as a display of their innate skills and abilities. But the knife cuts both ways, because if they fail to succeed, there's absolutely nowhere for them to hide. The other question, though, remains as to which of these teams has been able to do the incredible, the impossible perhaps, with these regulations, and pull something out of the hat over the winter that gives them the march on their rivals. As always, we can't wait for this season to begin, but for now, from us, that's your
EA Sports. It's in the game.
New year, new drivers, new calendar, 2 rebranded teams. It can only be Formula 1 in 2021. Welcome one and all to the opening round of the 2021 season, the 71st year of the FIA Formula 1 World Championship, and it could prove to be one of the most competitive in years. We start from the Bahrain Grand Prix for the first time since 2010 with the traditional 3 DRS zones around this 3+ kilometre plus track. Very different from the last time we were here, where we were at the shortened layout. We also have the debut of the Aston Martin safety car that a lot of drivers will be maybe hoping that they don't see very early on to maybe ruin their strategies, or very late on to ruin their chances. And plenty of driver moves in 2021, not least of which there, Carlos Sainz making his Ferrari debut. Aiden Jackson, through the most bizarre of circumstances, making his debut for HAAS. He was a Mercedes development driver not a few months ago. Charles Leclerc now the leading man at Ferrari with the move of Sebastian Vettel to the newly rebranded Aston Martin team. We've also got another one in the form of Alpine and the returning Fernando Alonso. We've got Sergio Perez there making his debut for Red Bull. We've got Lewis Hamilton going for a record 8th World Championship, putting him ahead of the great Michael Schumacher, or will Max Verstappen score his first? We have 20 rounds to find out, and this is the first one. Here is the grid then for the Bahrain Grand Prix. We have Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton on the front row, Hamilton missing out by less than a tenth. It's not the last time we're going to be saying that this season. Sergio Perez, though, getting ahead of Valtteri Bottas on the second row. They're followed by both Ferraris as Leclerc got ahead of Carlos Sainz. Daniel Ricciardo and McLaren debut starts on P7 ahead of Pierre Gasly. Fernando Alonso, returning from his 2-year sabbatical, lines up on row 5 ahead of Sebastian Vettel, making his debut for Aston Martin. Lance Stroll lines up alongside the rookie Yuki Tsunoda in 11th and 12th. Esteban Ocon is with Antonio Giovinazzi on row 7. We've got Aiden Jackson promoted to 15th after Lando Norris dropped to 16th due to a component change already in his McLaren, obviously making their return as the Mercedes power. Kimi Raikkonen 17th alongside George Russell, and Mick Schumacher, the reigning F2 champion, gets ahead of Nicholas Latifi at the back of the grid. So here it is for the formation lap for the opening round of the 2021 season. Hopefully one of the most competitive in years if Red Bull can continue their rise through the ranks since the end of 2020. In the most unusual year ever, with so many returning and old tracks being used, such as Imola and the Nürburgring. And in this year's calendar, Portimao and Imola have been retained with the cancellation of a few of the Fly Array races, not least of which the Australian Grand Prix was cancelled very late in the day. It was due to be run at the end of the season, but due to the worries of the pandemic, which is still causing a few disruptions in other parts of the world, but we are in a very much better position to run the majority of sports than we were here last year. The precautions and measures are still being taken, but we are in a much better position, and it is somewhat of a back to normal feel, just with precautions still being taken, of course, with the effects of the pandemic being felt around the world, but sport in general is just in a much better position than we were last year with the introduction of vaccines and obviously other measures as well. It's all been done and calculated accordingly, and it was such a Herculean effort, so to speak, on the 2020 season to get it going. We had to wait so long before we even got the first round underway. So it is somewhat a back to normal feel here, just with a different starting point. As we said, the Bahrain Grand Prix for the first time since 2010. Back then, Michael Schumacher was making his second return, and over 11 years later, Fernando Alonso is making his second return as well at Alpine, and Michael Schumacher's son Mick is making his HAAS debut down in P19 in a very underdeveloped car, to be fair. Aiden Jackson making a great effort to get the car into P16, but then was promoted to P15 with Lando Norris taking a penalty. But of course, as he got to Q3, he'll start on the soft tyres, which might benefit him because most of the runners ahead of him are going to be on the medium tyres, although a fresh shed of medium tyres, of course, as the rule with the tyres doesn't affect them. And the grid is finally lined up for the opening round of the 2021 Formula 1 season. Hold on to your seats. 5 red lights ahead of the drivers. And it's lights out, and away we go. For Formula 1 in 2021, it's a great start by Max Verstappen. Sergio Perez is round the outside. Can he get the speed going down the outside? He's already passed Bottas, and he's going to go side by side with Lewis Hamilton going into turn 2. And Perez is going to get against Carlos Sainz. He's going to pass Valtteri Bottas as well. And Mercedes have a terrible start, with Red Bull wanting 1-2 at the end of the second corner. What a start by Sergio Perez. He was third on the grid. And alongside Lewis Hamilton going out of turn 1, but got the better exit into turn 2. Meanwhile, Daniel Ricciardo and Pierre Gasly are side by side, with Ricciardo on his McLaren debut going to be passed by the AlphaTauri of Gasly, and he's going to be slightly inside going out of turn 8, I believe, into turn 9 and turn 10. Daniel Ricciardo is going to be later on the brakes into turn 10, and he holds the position and is now in P7 and is settled there. Alonso stays in P9 on his return to Alpine. And further down the field, we have Aiden Jackson there. I think he's somewhere in there under that gaggle of cars. There he is. And he's still hold ahead of Lando Norris in the first few corners here. But I think Norris is probably going to have him on the straight coming up, you would have thought. But good start from Jackson to stay into 15th place. Although, to be fair, no, he hasn't lost out to Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi's fallen behind Esteban Ocon there. But it is pretty much status quo at the back. And Lando Norris now right on the tail of Aiden Jackson. He's going to have an advantage with the Mercedes power unit and the soft tyres. Is he going to fly down the inside of the HAAS? Going to turn 1. The HAAS is going to be benefiting from some slipstream from Giovinazzi. That might help him out. And that's not the greatest of angles. Did he pull out and go in down the inside of Jackson? No! Norris didn't pass Jackson there. Interesting. As we enter the second lap. No DRS until the end of the lap. Now Norris is down the inside. Going up to turn 4. And he's got him. Good move by Lando Norris on Jackson. But to be fair, Jackson doing great there on his Formula 1 debut, of course. And let's have a replay of the start then. Sergio Perez, the man of the start at the moment. And he got right up alongside Hamilton as they went into turn 1. Great fast start there by Perez. He was able to get side by side with Hamilton going into turn 1. No contact there. He got the great exit out of turn 1 with the ERS deployment. And he got past. Great move there by Perez to start the race. Now, it should be noted that Perez and Verstappen used Q2 and got through on the soft tyres. The Mercedes, both Mercedes used the mediums. So Mercedes technically have a better strategy as Carlos Sainz. What a start. He passed Leclerc after committing to the outside and then used the same move Perez used to get down the inside of Valtteri Bottas, and Mercedes have the worst possible start to this race. But as we said, both Red Bull racing cars are on the soft tyres, so the race might come back to Lewis Hamilton later on as he was on the mediums, and maybe Red Bull trying a different strategy to start this race. As we update you on the order, we obviously saw Lando Norris getting past Aiden Jackson. Verstappen already growing out to a second lead as we're coming to the end of a second racing lap. Of course, DRS will be enabled at the end of this lap, and 1.2 ahead of Perez. Verstappen is at the moment. I wonder what team orders will come into effect here at Red Bull. Maybe Max Verstappen will be told to maybe back off just a tad to give Perez down DRS down the straights in the DRS zones. That'll get him away from Lewis Hamilton, who's the furthest second behind Perez. And here we are with rookie Aiden Jackson holding his own in P15 there. Meanwhile, Lando Norris down the outside of Antonio Giovinazzi. It's the same move that Perez and Sainz used, and he's got him. And Lando Norris is going to have to make up for some lost positions here. And he's on the soft tyres, of course, because he got through to Q3 on the soft tyres before taking the penalty. So he has to start on the used set of soft tyres, but he's already making amends. He's already passed Jackson and Giovinazzi and is closing on Esteban Ocon. McLaren obviously returning to the Mercedes power unit for 2021 for the first time since 2014, because in 2015 they switched to Honda power, of course, and it wasn't pretty. Let's just say that for McLaren, but they've come on strides since then. Bit of and obviously having their best constructors finish since 2014 last season, and now they've made the big moves of Daniel Ricciardo and Mercedes power. And at the back, reigning Formula 2 champion Mick Schumacher needs no introduction. The son of the legendary Michael Schumacher, who this year could be second to Lewis Hamilton in the number of championships won. Lewis going for his 8th, and Mercedes going for their 7th in a row, I believe, as Antonio Giovinazzi there locks up in the Alfa Romeo. Now, is this going to give Jackson a chance to pass him as he deploys DRS? He'll have DRS as well. Down the outside, Aiden Jackson in a car that has no development for the 2021 season. Down the outside of the Alfa Romeo, and is he going to hold it the same move into turn 2? He's got him. What a move by Aiden Jackson in a car that has no development planned for it. Great move by the rookie. Meanwhile, here is Esteban Ocon being passed by Lando Norris as he continues to make up the lost time. Next for him, I believe, is Sebastian Vettel, and then Yuki Tsunoda, and then Lance Stroll, I think. They were down side by side for a long time, Norris and Ocon. Fair play to Ocon, trying to hang it in against the might of the Mercedes power unit in that McLaren. And there was Stroll and Tsunoda, and I think there was contact there between Stroll and Tsunoda as Tsunoda got his elbows out, holding on to P10. Followed by Stroll and his teammate Sebastian Vettel. And meanwhile, back at the front, Valtteri Bottas not having a great start to this race at all. Down there in P5, that is not what Mercedes wanted. Charles Leclerc is hanging on to him in the Ferrari. He's got DRS there. He's going to close the gap because Bottas doesn't have DRS off Sainz. And speaking of Carlos Sainz, this is a great effort, by the way. He's holding on to Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. The Ferrari obviously very underpowered due to previous years after the bit of a controversy in 2019 surrounding their power unit, but they've come on very well today, and he's holding on to Lewis Hamilton in front of him, who's 2 seconds now behind the runaway leaders of Verstappen and Perez. But as we said earlier, Hamilton is on the medium tyres, the Red Bull's on the softs, and that might come back to hurt Red Bull later in the race. They'll have to obviously stop earlier than Hamilton, but the question will be how early will it be? And to be fair, Hamilton is not getting completely dropped here, and the reigning world champion going for his 8th, which will put him championship, which will put him clear of Michael Schumacher and solidify his status as the greatest of all time, no doubt about it. Some would say he's already there, having taken the majority of Michael Schumacher's records, of course, last season in terms of podiums, wins, and the rest. And Max Verstappen now a 2.5 seconds clear of Perez. There is no team orders being enforced at Red Bull at the moment, telling Verstappen to maybe slow down a little bit and try and drag Perez with him, using DRS for Sergio Perez. There's no such order at the moment. Meanwhile, at the back, Aiden Jackson is still holding his own, the rookie, who was drafted in by Mercedes, more or less. He was a Mercedes development driver not a month ago, and now he's making his Formula 1 debut after a bit of a merry-go-round at HAAS, let's say. The controversy surrounding Nikita Mazepin, who is now HAAS's 3rd driver for the year. He will partake in the practice sessions later in the season, when Jackson will be taking part in a Mercedes. Of course, the new rules state that development and young drivers must partake in 2 practice sessions at the very least throughout the season, having competed 2 races or fewer. But due to the circumstances of Jackson's arrival at HAAS and the situation surrounding it, Jackson will still be permitted to drive for Mercedes later in the season, so he'll be taking the seat from Bottas at the British Grand Prix, and then from Sir Lewis Hamilton at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and that'll be his 2 practice sessions at Mercedes. We'll see Nikita Mazepin taking Jackson's place in those sessions. Meanwhile, the first one of the rookies, Yuki Tsunoda, in P10, going for his first points already in Formula 1. He's well on course for it at the moment, and definitely the leader of the rookies, the other 2 being Jackson and Mick Schumacher. And to be fair to HAAS, they're not being left behind either. Jackson is falling out of the clutches of Esteban Ocon now, but Mick Schumacher is holding on to Nicholas Latifi, but he's struggling to pass him at the moment. And as we know, HAAS, a very underdeveloped car, is going to be a very underdeveloped car this year. This is basically a placeholder season for them, and obviously putting all their resources into the 2022 car, and it'll be a much more competitive package for the 2022 season. The question is, who will their driver lineup be? with next season. With Aiden Jackson, there has been rumours since he was signed that maybe he's just being courted by Mercedes to maybe take Russell's seat at Williams should Russell be promoted to Mercedes for 2022. So watch this space. We could be seeing Aiden Jackson in a very different situation next season. Meanwhile, at the front, and we are hearing from our pit crew that Red Bull are in the pit lane and they're coming out to receive one of their drivers. Which one will it be? Will it be Verstappen or Sergio Perez? It's going to be a very early stop, of course, with Red Bull being on the soft tyres, and this will be exactly what Lewis Hamilton needs. He's been in clear air for the most of the race at the moment. He's just a second, I think, behind Sergio Perez, so he's actually gained on Perez a little bit, and the Red Bull mechanics are out in the pit lane, so it looks like they're going to receive one of their drivers. I would assume it's Verstappen, because Verstappen will probably get priority as he is the leading Red Bull. Meanwhile, Lando Norris's progress has stalled a little bit now. He's coming up behind Sebastian Vettel. Down there in P12, the Aston Martin and Alpine teams is definitely one of the battles of the midfield, being rebrands, of course, from Racing Point and Renault, respectively. As Max Verstappen comes out of the penultimate corner, he's grown to a 2.2 second lead over his teammate Perez. And will he be coming into the pits? Will he be diving right into the pit lane and to make his first stop of the race? Yes, he will. So it's going to be a 2-stop for Max Verstappen, unless he puts the hard tyres on. Let's see the tyres that will go on this Red Bull car for the second stint of this race. It's going to be the medium tyres for Max Verstappen. So I'm pretty sure that Max will have to stop again, because I don't think he's going to make it to the end of the race on those tyres. We've got one of the Ferraris coming in. I think it's Charles Leclerc, because he's dropping down the field. So Charles Leclerc is in the pits as well, making a tyre change. And of course, during a dry race, but all drivers must run at least 2 of the 3 available tyre compounds. So Max is going on to the mediums and fulfilling that requirement, as is Charles Leclerc in the pits as well. Aiden Jackson now up to P12. He's on the medium tyres, Aiden Jackson. So he's going for a long first stint. That could be a very interesting choice. And Jackson's holding his own. Let's be honest, he's holding his own against the runners he's around this season, which will be the Alfa Romeos and the Williamses, my apologies. The Williams cars and the Alfa Romeos are pretty much HAAS's direct competitors. But of course, as we said earlier, they are all putting all their resources into the 2022 car, and 2021 is just a placeholder season for them. And whatever data they can get leading to the development of the 2022 car will be invaluable. As Antonio Giovinazzi is going to be driving down the inside with DRS coming out of turn 10 into turn 11. Jackson holding it round the outside. Aiden Jackson getting the elbows out. What a start defense there from Jackson. Let's see this on the replay then. Oh, I mean, fair play to Aiden Jackson. That was a tremendous piece of defense there, as Giovinazzi went around the outside, and then Jackson, and this was earlier in the race, I think. This was a lap before. So Jackson is holding his own against Antonio Giovinazzi. Meanwhile, Sergio Perez, who inherited the race lead from Verstappen, is coming in the lap after, I believe, as we go into lap 9. So it is a lap after. Soft tyres for Sergio Perez. Interesting. Red Bull splitting the strategies, as Carlos Sainz has also come in to the pits after his great first stint in the race, where he got to P4 ahead of Bottas and his teammate Leclerc, as Lando Norris is now in P5, and we've got side by side again with Giovinazzi and Jackson. What's going to happen here? Jackson's got DRS, out comes Carlos Sainz. Jackson is going to run out of space. Giovinazzi on the outside, and Jackson's having to thread a needle, and is he going to pass Sainz? Yes, he is. Aiden Jackson, what a great piece of driving there. He had no chance to get out of that. He was right in the middle of it. And now Carlos Sainz is going to DRS going into turn 4. And it's going to be an easy move, you would think. But wow. What a great piece of driving there from the rookie. No fear. Stood against Carlos Sainz and momentarily was ahead. But now, of course, he's going to fall behind. Sainz, I think, putting another set of soft tyres on, I think. I couldn't really see. But wow. What a piece of defense there from the rookie. Aiden Jackson showing no fear and really making up for the deficiencies of the HAAS. Meanwhile, Schumacher has made a couple of places as Pierre Gasly and Fernando Alonso came into the pits. And fair play to Schumacher, he's still holding on to Latifi at the moment, and both HAAS drivers have yet to pit. So Schumacher looks to be making the tyres last. I'm not sure what he started on. I was assuming it's the softs. If it wasn't, then it probably makes sense as to why he is still behind Nicholas Latifi. Meanwhile, just down the inside of Max Verstappen there, going down the inside of Lando Norris, who I believe pitted. No, he hasn't pitted. He's P5. He's coming to the pits now, Lando Norris, to change his tyres. Max Verstappen chasing down Lance Stroll. The quicker he can dispatch of Stroll and Tsunoda ahead, the better chance he'll have later in the race, but he's going to have to make a second stop. There's no way those medium tyres will make it to the end of the race. Red Bull spin the strategy with Perez where is Perez on this leaderboard? He's P6 at the moment, as Norris is taking on another set of soft tyres as well. So the soft tyres are being used by the majority of drivers at the moment. A second set of soft tyres, Lando Norris being one of them. So Schumacher's been passed by Gasly. Gasly's making some inroads now, up into P16 ahead of Latifi. And his teammate, well, look at this, Yuki Tsunoda running in P3 on lap 10 on the medium tyres. Have AlphaTauri played a blinder with Tsunoda later in the race? Of course, everyone from Tsunoda to Jackson, Russell, Giovinazzi, they still have to pit. Daniel Ricciardo is down in P13, but he's pitted, of course. And here we are with the rookie who's making a real name for himself. Aiden Jackson, lads, is in P10 because he's yet to pit. But Jackson have a tremendous race at the moment. And there is Max Verstappen going down the inside of Lance Stroll as the Red Bulls quickly dispatch of the Aston Martin, or at least Verstappen does. Yuki Tsunoda will no doubt have a call from the radio and told to be a open door for Max Verstappen per se, with the AlphaTauri being the sister team to Red Bull for their young drivers. A bit of a merry-go-round over the last few years in the Red Bull driver system. But they've finally landed two proven race winners in Perez and Verstappen. Perez passing Lance Stroll with the same move he did on Lewis Hamilton at the start of the race, as Max Verstappen down the outside of turn 3 on Yuki Tsunoda. Absolute bold statement there. And there is Nicholas Latifi, I think, driving to the side. He's blocking the pit lane. We've got yellow flags. Will the marshals cover that under double wave yellows? That's on the entrance of the pit lane. And the pit lane is not closed yet, I don't think. And some drivers will be probably coming in a lap or two. So the likes of Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas will be hoping the safety car either comes out now or doesn't come out at all. Either way, it might help them. But the pit lane might be closed, but Latifi was right on the entrance there. I think he pulled away just far enough, maybe. So it looks like the pit lane is still open. No plans for a safety car. And Lewis Hamilton has inherited the lead after both Red Bulls stopped very early on. Lewis Hamilton, to be fair, is running very much longer than the Red Bulls. So this could really play into Mercedes' hands later on, as there is the stricken Williams of Latifi. And I don't think that's blocking anywhere. We've got yellow flags in that start-finish straight, but I think they're covering it under double-wave yellow. So no plans for safety car. Daniel Ricciardo has passed Aiden Jackson. Probably no surprise there, with the McLaren having very much better power than the Ferrari engine and the HAAS, which is pretty much a 2021 engine, I think. I think HAAS and Alfa Romeo have the most recent Ferrari engines. And now we've got Sergio Perez and Yuki Tsunoda in a side-by-side battle going into turn 1. Yuki Tsunoda with Sergio Perez, and Tsunoda's on the medium tyres, and Perez is going to retake the position. I think he was ahead of him anyway, wasn't he? But Yuki Tsunoda definitely getting his elbows out there. And, well, battle with the Red Bulls here. Tsunoda wasn't pushing on an open door, and you'd expect nothing less from him, as Daniel Ricciardo has made his way up into the points. As Esteban Ocon, I think those cars have yet to pit. Jackson is being pursued by George Russell, a British compatriot, of course. And round the outside goes Pierre Gasly of Antonio Kimi Raikkonen, rather. We're getting a lot of moves on the outside. Poor Mick Schumacher really just doesn't seem to be getting anywhere at the moment. But he's still ahead of Lando Norris, but I don't think it'll be long before Norris passes him, with Norris being on the soft tyres. To be fair though, I believe Mick is on the medium, so the HAAS boys are going long with their drivers. Interesting. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton, the race leader, on lap 12 into the pits. That's a good kind of strategy here. What will go on that Mercedes? Hard tyres. So I think Lewis is going to try and make it to the end of the race. You'd expect nothing from the 7-time world champion. He can make it work. We all know that Lewis Hamilton can win a race on 3 wheels after the British Grand Prix last year, in which he suffered a puncture on the final lap and won the race. And Max Verstappen is ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and Sergio Perez is there as well. Perez is on the soft tyres, remember, and Hamilton has come out in not the greatest of spots, to be fair, behind both Red Bulls. So going longer has not really helped Hamilton in that scenario, but the Red Bulls no doubt will have to stop again. There's no way that Perez definitely won't make it to the end of the race on those soft tyres, and I don't think Max will make it to the end of the race on the mediums either. He put those on lap 7, and we're already on lap 13. Here's Aiden Jackson in P11 at the moment. Lofty heights for HAAS and a non-developed car. I'll tell you that for free. Aiden Jackson's having a great one here, to be fair. He's really defending very well, and he's just outside the points. What a great effort, though, from the HAAS man, who was a Mercedes development driver not just a month ago, and he's come in under unusual circumstances, let's say, and he's performing very admirably at the moment. And Pierre Gasly is going to get DRS on Giovinazzi ahead. That's going to keep him ahead of the Alpine. Bottas is coming in after assuming the lead, so everyone's pretty much stopping the lap after each other. And it's the hard, my apologies, for Valtteri Bottas. And is he going to beat Verstappen? Another pits is 14 seconds. No, Verstappen is going to assume the lead then, but Red Bull will no doubt have to stop again. So, and there's Lewis Hamilton with DRS on Perez. No inroads there. Carlos Sainz goes back into P4, so no real changes in the top 4 positions. Here's Aiden Jackson going into the pits. What are HAAS going to put on Jackson here? This is going to be very interesting. They've gone a long way on those tyres. Jackson, to be fair, has done really well. Is he going to put the hards on? Let's find out. Many drivers now coming in to make their stops as well. It is going to be hards for Jackson. Interesting. HAAS going to the end of the race then on those tyres, and he's got out back ahead of Russell, and Russell has made no inroads whatsoever on Jackson, which is impressive for Jackson considering the HAAS this season. Meanwhile, back at the front, Lewis Hamilton looking much closer now to the Red Bulls, as you can see, so maybe staying out longer was a good thing for Hamilton. DRS down going into turn 11. No real gain of pace there. Lewis Hamilton very much closes the Red Bulls. This is prime position for Lewis Hamilton now because he's on the hard tyres. Perez, if he makes a stark defence, however, could maybe take some life out of the tyres. The Mercedes is not the best at following cars over the last few years, even in this dominant era of Mercedes. It's not been all plain sailing when it comes to following another car. So will this affect Hamilton later in the race? Perez needs to start defense as possible. Hamilton's going to have DRS. He's gaining on Perez, but he's not close enough. He's not close enough to Perez. Of course, Perez is going to have the advantage of the soft tyres, but he's going to have to come in much sooner than intended. And Bottas now round the outside of Sainz. Great move. Once again, the panda move out of turn 1 into turn 2. And Perez makes... Bottas, my apologies, makes very easy work of Sainz. And Norris has passed Fernando Alonso on the soft tyres, as Norris took a second set of soft tyres, I think. I'm not sure there, but it looked very close. It looked like one of the cars got out of shape. Alonso's going to have DRS going into turn 11, round the outside. Fernando Alonso, oh, he spun! Alonso has spun the car, and he spun it on the outside. Was there contact, maybe, between Fernando Alonso and Lando Norris there? A bit of a battle, and it's ended in disaster for the two-time world champion of 2005 and 2006. And we'll have to see a replay. Here it is. Was there contact? Well, Fernando Alonso doing a great job against Norris here. Norris is going to be on worn soft tyres. Oh, he got trigger happy on the throttle, Alonso. That's a trigger happy on the throttle. That's a spin. and he's lost it. And let's see here. Yep, 2 trigger happy on the throttle, and Fernando Alonso, a rare mistake for the man in the Alpine and the double world champion, a very rare mistake indeed. He's lost out to, he was with Norris, so he's lost out, down in P14 now, ahead of Aiden Jackson, who's 2 seconds further behind him. And I don't think he'll suffer too much from Aiden Jackson, who, again, to be fair, is still holding his own alongside Russell and the 2 Alfa Romeos. And Jackson is showing some very unusual pace, to be fair, because you'd expect Haas to be right at the back, really racing amongst themselves, but Jackson's been in amongst it all Grand Prix long at the moment. And back at the front, Lewis Hamilton now, he's going to get DRS out of turn 2, going up to turn 3. Is he going to be close enough to try and move on Perez? It's going to be very close, but no move there, and this is harming Hamilton's race a little bit. He's been behind Perez for a while now, and Perez doing the job, as it were, against Lewis Hamilton to protect Verstappen. And now Mick Schumacher is starting to fall behind the Alfa Romeo of Kimi Raikkonen, but Schumacher's on the hards as well. So Haas have done really well, to be fair, to go from the soft tyres to the hards. I'm sure both Haas drivers are on the mediums, I think, now, with Schumacher on the hard tyres. So great effort by the Haas boys. It'll be an effort just for them to finish. Well, not to finish. They've got good reliability, Haas. It's just going to be a slow car for the season, unfortunately for them. It's their chassis and the downforce that's going to be hurting Haas this season. But to be fair, like we said, Jackson really performing admirably at the moment. He's 3 seconds behind Alonso. That's probably to be expected. And it's pretty much as it was before the pit stops began. The only real difference is Valtteri Bottas ahead of Sainz now, and Hamilton very close to Perez, and Verstappen, and Hamilton has passed Perez, and there's a lock up there from is it George Russell or Nikita Mazepin? Schumacher's no, it's not Nikita Mazepin, my apologies. It's Perez comes into the pits, no surprises there. He only lasted about 9 laps on the soft tyres, and I'm not sure what that lockup was about. But anyway, Perez is now chasing. Well, Perez is going to pit because he was on the soft tyres, so that's ruined his race. Gasly there, and he's going to come out ahead of Gasly. He is, and now Perez is going to make the moves to the mediums. But I think that gamble wasn't really paid off for Red Bull, to be honest. Although I guess, to be fair, he had held Lewis Hamilton up probably long enough, but the gap is still only 2 seconds between Hamilton and Verstappen. So maybe, I'm not really sure what Red Bull were planning there. Looks like they might have been planning to have Perez ahead of Lewis for as long as possible, but Perez didn't really make any inroads on Lewis on the soft tyres, despite being on 2 compounds softer than Lewis. So I think it's a great effort by Lewis Hamilton to be within the Red Bulls at the moment. Meanwhile, at the back, it's still Mick Schumacher just a second behind Antonio Giovinazzi, and I'll tell you something, I think Haas would take that at the moment. I think they'd take anything they could get at the moment, with Jackson still in P15 and Schumacher is just a second behind this battle. Jackson is doing great in the Haas at the moment. We said it a lot already, but I think it just is. It's just a testament, really. And oh, what was that? Was that a hit by Russell? It might have been, but that's interesting. I wonder if George is going to have damage. We're going to team radio. Guys, the car's feeling strange. What's happened? Okay, Aiden, you had a hit from Russell in turn 10. It's bodywork damage. The car's fine. Keep pushing. So there was contact there. It looks like Jackson suffered some damage. It's only bodywork damage that his race engineer Jeff has stated there. Here's Mick Schumacher round the outside of the Alfa Romeo of Giovinazzi and Raikkonen as well. And has Russell got damage? Has he held up the 2 Alfa Romeos, and the Williams mechanics are out of the pits, and Russell's coming in. So it looks like, and Schumacher's getting 3 places in the space of a corner. Is he going to be able to hold it with DRS? That's great pace there by the Alfa Romeo, to be fair. Is Schumacher going to do the tried and tested move into turn 2? He is. Oh, the slightest of nudges there. Mick Schumacher versus Kimi Raikkonen. The last time we saw a Schumacher and Raikkonen battle was within the 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix. And nice moves, buddy. Okay, so your teammate Aiden is just 7 seconds up the road. He is carrying slight car damage from a collision with Russell earlier, so he will be slightly slower. Just bear that in mind when attempting a pass. So it looks like Jackson might be slowing down with that team radio then from Mick Schumacher's race engineer, Gary Gannon. A very nice guy and has grown quite the following in recent times. And now Mick Schumacher's race engineer, and he's actually just telling him that Jackson might be slower as he has slight bodywork damage from a hit from Russell. That's very interesting. So can Schumacher, after being pretty much at the back all race long, struggling to pass Latifi and those ahead of him, could Schumacher finally be making his way up to P15? His teammate will be slower, as some of the drivers now making their second stops now, the ones that went on different strategies. And the Mercedes now have inherited the lead, as I believe Max Verstappen has pitted, which is probably of no surprise, because he wasn't going to make it to the end of the race. So now we've got DRS here on Giovinazzi. We're watching Alonso coming out of the pits. He spun earlier, of course. And around the outside of Mick Schumacher, it's Schumacher and Raikkonen again. And he's got him. Tried and trusted move in turn 2. There's Aiden Jackson. He is slowing down a bit. So it looks like that bodywork damage is causing the HAAS to slow down a little bit. And, well, Mick Schumacher, I don't think he expected to be battling the man who battled his father in 2012 so quickly. I think Mick will take it. He'll take any battles he can get in this HAAS this season. So he's proving his worth in now, and he's actually coming into the race a little bit now, Mick Schumacher. After being nowhere, he's really hanging on to the end of the field well. So to be fair, Schumacher's had a decent one. Alright Aiden, the damage is minor, but you are going to be compromised in terms of pace. You've got Kimi and Mick coming up fast on you. They're 4 seconds behind you. Repeat, 4 seconds. Copy. Car's fine, I think. Where is Mick? He's right behind him, but he's struggling to pass him. Don't hold them up. Repeat, don't hold them up. You're going to be slightly slower. Got it. Copy. How many laps? There's 10 remaining. Repeat, 10 remaining. So that pretty much confirms it. Aiden Jackson will be slower. He does have damage from the hit from Russell. It was not intentional in any sense of the in any sense of the word. But yeah, car damage for Jackson. Then what will HAAS do? Will they get him out of the way, or will they tell Jackson just to fight it as hard as he can, but try not to hold Mick up? That could be very interesting going forward, because Schumacher and Jackson could really have maybe pulled together maybe and finish this race. They're in very lofty positions at the moment, HAAS. And well, let's see if Mick Schumacher can hold on to Raikkonen in this stint. And maybe if Raikkonen gets held up by Jackson, maybe there could be a benefit here. I don't think Aiden's going to intentionally hold Raikkonen up. I don't think there's any need for him to be honest, or any like real reason to. It's not really going to benefit HAAS. They're probably going to lose out anyway. But to be fair, Jackson has been ahead of Alfa Romeo all day long, so maybe he won't need to, but we'll see. I mean, Schumacher is holding on to Raikkonen here, but obviously Jackson's going to be suffering with that car damage, and he really is. You can tell already Raikkonen now much closer as we enter the DRS zone. He's not going to have it this lap, but he'll probably have it going down the start-finish straight. Schumacher's going to have it out of turn 10 though, but nothing really doing there. And now Giovinazzi is with Alonso, who's had to stop again, probably after burning out his tyres during that spin that he had. So I think he probably would have had to pit anyway, but he would have been much higher up had it not been for that spin, of course. He was in the points at that point when battling Norris. And now Schumacher much closer to Raikkonen here. Is he going to have him down the straight? We've got 9 laps remaining in this Grand Prix. Alonso's passed Giovinazzi somewhere. And now we're ready. This could really turn into a decent battle for P14 here. Schumacher's going to DRS, but it's not really going to help him too much, because Jackson has Raikkonen rather has DRS, and now Jackson is very vulnerable with a damaged car. Here we are at turn 3. DRS for Raikkonen. Is he going to get him? No, he's not close enough. Jackson's still trying to hold his own despite the bodywork damage. And now out of turn 3, and nothing doing there for Raikkonen, but they are going to be much closer now. Jackson was told not to hold them up because he was going to be slower. And, well, Lewis Hamilton Well, it's been a blinding strategy from us all, and a bit of a tank slapper there from Hamilton. Probably not so much, but it's been a blinder for Mercedes on the strategy front. Going onto the hard tyres, there was a lock up there by someone, and Alonso's closing in on this battle as well. It's going to be a titanic scrap for P14 with Jackson a bit wounded in terms of his car, but he's going to do his best, as his engineer Jeff was saying on the radio. And look at this, 1, 2, 3, separated by about a second. And for HAAS, that, like we said, that's lofty heights really. And Jackson's pulled out a bit of a gap down the straight. Gasly has passed Ocon into the final corner. Jackson takes it nicely, to be fair. Now, what is going to be the status here? We've got Raikkonen with DRS, Schumacher with DRS behind him as well. Raikkonen's much closer, and Raikkonen's going to pull out to the inside. And Jackson is going to probably concede the position. And Raikkonen went a bit too deep there. And is Jackson going to make good on it? No, he's not. He's going to, and there's almost contact there with Raikkonen. And Jackson's going to get DRS, of course. Schumacher's going to try it down the outside. And this is going to come off, and Jackson and both HAAS drivers have repassed Raikkonen now. And, well, that was a great move from Schumacher around the outside. He's going to pass Jackson, his teammate. It's a bold move, and no, and yes. And Jackson has lost out to Raikkonen as well. He went wide, and he's going to hold it. Yes, he is, just about. And Schumacher's made up 2 places on this lap. Great move by Schumacher. He's coming into this race now, and Jackson just about holding his position as well. Look how far back Schumacher was here. And Raikkonen was already making the move on Jackson. Jackson had really nothing to defend. He did well, giving Raikkonen the car's width. Raikkonen goes a bit wider than probably normal. That's what probably compromised him. Jackson then had DRS. And look at Schumacher coming up really quickly. And that was just about a car's width between Raikkonen and Schumacher there. And how did he pass Jackson? Jackson went wide out of turn 3. In turn 4 and 5, Schumacher was bold and a car's width, and then Jackson probably just lost the car a little bit. We've got team radio incoming, I believe, and that was a great inside move there. Attaboy, Aiden, very well played. Copy. Did Mick get any damage? Did I hit him? No, you didn't. Mick has no damage to his car. Try and stay behind him now and let him give you DRS to the end of the race. We've got Kimi and Alonso right behind us. Do your best, but be careful. Copy. Great teamwork there, Mick. Okay, Aiden's going to try and stay behind you for the rest of the race to get DRS down the straights as he's defending from Kimi and Alonso. We are holding station till the end of the race. Repeat, holding station. Let's bring these cars home. So a bit of teamwork there by the HAAS drivers. Was that intentional from Jackson perhaps? Well, he kept it clean. There's nothing to say he can't do that. And he gave Kimi the space, and there's a lock up there by Mick Schumacher. He had real problems with that in the F2 race towards the end of the season in his championship battle with Callum Arlott. He locked up a tyre and had to pit late in the race and dropped to the last place. And it looked like his tyre was on a thread, but then Callum ran out of tyres, and Schumacher was able to keep the title because Callum did not finish in the first 2 spots, which is what he needed to take the title. And Schumacher's been struggling with lockups at this circuit, and now he did a couple there on this lap. Jackson's going to have DRS, so it looks like the HAAS drivers are going to hold position now, and Schumacher's going to help Jackson with some speed, because of course Jackson has that damage that's compromised his car. So was that an orchestrated move perhaps by Jackson and Schumacher to pass Raikkonen? I mean, Schumacher passed Raikkonen on his own merit. He was already ahead by the time he'd gone alongside Jackson, so Jackson must have gone wide to give Schumacher all the space he needed to pass him as Jackson takes to the outside, and he has been told to hold station, but it doesn't look like he is, but he's staying behind. And Fernando Alonso now in the Alpine. The Renault engine is not the best on the grid, down the inside, and Alonso is on the medium tyres, so he's on better tyres than Jackson. Schumacher takes to the inside, Jackson brakes much later, and Alonso can't find a way through. And well, I wonder if Schumacher saw Alonso coming and made the one move. Schumacher's entitled to do one move, of course, and the one move was vital. It got Jackson back ahead of Alonso. So the HAAS boys having a bit of teamwork here. So let's see how this looked from Jackson's point of view. And, well, Jackson gives Alonso a car's width. And then Schumacher makes the move to kind of block Alonso out. And then they take the whole of turn 1 for themselves and allow Alonso no way through. Great defense by the Haas boys. And, well, these two are working very well in tandem at the moment. Schumacher was entitled to that one move. That's not illegal. That is perfectly entitled to do that. Because he didn't make a move beforehand. And it does look like Jackson is going to try and pull Schumacher's going to try and pull Jackson along. And, well, these two have had a stunning race, to be fair. Schumacher's come alive in the latter stages of this race on the hard tyres. It looks like the Haas really likes the hard tyres because Schumacher was only P19 in qualifying on the soft tyres. So it looks like the Haas cars like the harder of the 3 tyres, especially this one. And here we are down the straight again. So, what's going to happen now? Jackson's obviously not going to pass Schumacher because he's been ordered to stay behind him. He does pull to the left. And he's side by side. Oh, he got out of the throttle. So he's obeying the team order, I suppose. They're blocking Alonso off. And Alonso's going to have a look. Oh, no. And Haas making their cars as wide as possible and giving Alonso no room. They are entitled to do that. And there's some great teamwork here. And Alonso's going to really struggle because these two are working really well. And Schumacher already on for P14 his first race. He's had a bit of a lonely one up to this point. But he's come alive on the hard tyres. And Jackson obviously has damage to his car. Can Haas pull this off? With Esteban Ocon scoring no points. But he's in P13. So Haas would be ahead of Alfa Romeo and Williams in the constructors' standings, but they wouldn't be ahead of Alpine because Ocon is ahead of them. Jackson, I think, got a little squirrely out of turn 10, but he's going to have DRS that helps him out there. And Raikkonen's now closing on with this battle, so we've got 2 rookies and 2 world champions separated by about a second. This is quite an interesting prospect, to be fair. And now Jackson is not going to have DRS down this straight. I've always wondered why DRS wasn't down this straight. It's a much longer straight than, say, turn 3. Jackson taking it to the outside just to probably give Schumacher a car's win. Now, here we go, lap 25. We've forgotten about the leaders because this battle is still raging on. Jackson takes to the outside with DRS. Schumacher doesn't have DRS, so Jackson will take to the inside. Alonso has nowhere to go. He goes down the outside. And he can't do it. Schumacher breaks a little bit later and takes both the positions back. And Haas are definitely playing the team game here and playing it very well. Jackson there, well, he was ahead of Schumacher and then he let Schumacher back through. And I think Schumacher had DRS, so that'll pull him away a little bit. And well, let's have a look at this. And it looks like Schumacher's just drifting to the right just slightly to give Jackson a car's width. So Jackson makes the legal move, to be fair. And look at the braking there by Schumacher. Wow, that braking power. And that's very much like his dad used to do. He used to brake as late as he could and use slides and lockups to turn the car. That's very Schumacher-esque, that move. And, well, what a battle this is turning into. We've got Raikkonen right behind them now. And Giovinazzi's not too far off them either. This could be an absolutely almighty scrap. We've got 2 rookies working in tandem against 2 world champions. A multiple one in Alonso's case. And Kimi, the champion from 2007. Jackson got a little wide there. I don't think he'll be affected too much. He's gone wide there as well. And Jackson is definitely struggling with this car now. He's definitely struggling with it. The damage is telling. But he's still within the 1 second to get DRS off Schumacher as a piece of marbles, I think, flew up in Alonso's car there. I think that would be largely ineffective. It's just discarded rubber from the marbles, of course. Jackson's DRS. And Alonso will get DRS. And Jackson makes one move to the right. Alonso tries to... Oh. And what is going to happen now? Jackson's going to have the better line. And a bit of a late move there from Jackson. But I think it was the one because he stuck behind Schumacher until that moment. So Alonso getting very frustrated, you have to feel. Let's have a look. Poor Jackson is drifting to the right a little bit. And he got out of the throttle. And, well... It's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine from Jackson. I think it is. He drifted to the right just slightly and then got out of the throttle trying to stay behind Mick is like there. And then, yep, I think that's absolutely fine. I don't think that's 2 moves. It's not a offensive swipe across Alonso. So the HAAS team are doing brilliantly here. They're following the rules. And there's no rule stating that they can't do what they're doing. As long as they keep it clean and have no contact. And there has been no contact in any which way between these drivers. And for 2 rookies, that's even more impressive in Formula 1. And Jackson has had no experience in a Formula 1 car, while Schumacher's experience has been in testing and in other forms as well, but mostly around legendary vehicles his father drove in terms of the Ferraris in particular that he's driving. And we've completely forgotten about the front. Lewis Hamilton is leading this race from Bottas. Looks like it is going to be a comfortable win from Mercedes in the end. But now here we go again. Alonso with DRS, Jackson with DRS, and Jackson moving a little bit to the right. Alonso takes to the left. Jackson doesn't move twice. And now we've got 3 wide. It's a 10-1. And there's no contact there. And Jackson is very good at wheel-to-wheel racing with no contact. Once again, Jackson has to thread the needle, go down the middle, and he makes it work. Oh my word. HAAS doing absolutely wonders here. The penultimate lap, Jackson, a little bit of a squirrely moment. And here's the replay. We're having a load of replays. This is more entertaining than the stuff at the front at the moment. And, well, Jackson takes to the outside, gives Alonso the car's width, and there is the slightest gap, but I think it's enough. Jackson down the middle there, once again, very much like he did with Sainz and Giovinazzi early on. Jackson, fastest lap by Max Verstappen, a 131.8. That'll be the extra point that Verstappen will probably need at this point, because he's been behind Mercedes in the last stint of this race, having to pit again. And Alonso down the inside. And will he finally have Jackson? No! No! Jackson gets the elbows out. And another stark defense, as the blue flags are now in effect, because Lewis Hamilton, the race leader, is coming up on this battle. He'll want to avoid it as much as possible, I think, but he's on the final lap. Lewis Hamilton comes out of the penultimate corner. He's going to win the Bahrain Grand Prix. He's going to lap Giovinazzi, or Raikkonen actually, because Giovinazzi's passed Raikkonen somewhere. So, one more lap to decide the back of the field. And here we go again. Alonso, and Alonso lost the back end there. That was nothing to do with Jackson. There was nothing wrong with that. Jackson didn't even move, and Alonso lost the back end following the car, I think. Lewis Hamilton has won the Bahrain Grand Prix ahead of Valtteri Bottas and Max Verstappen. Crucial for Mercedes, playing an absolute blinder on the strategy today, but we're more focused on this battle at the back of the field here, as Aiden Jackson and Mick Schumacher have worked in tandem wonderfully in the last stages of this race. But Hamilton is your race winner from Bottas, Verstappen, who will get the extra point for fastest lap, Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz, Daniel Ricciardo, Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, Pierre Gasly, and Yuki Tsunoda will score on his debut. Double points for AlphaTauri as well. But still the race goes on, because Aiden Jackson, Mick Schumacher and Fernando Alonso have yet to cross the line and finish the race. It does look like HAAS are going to get at least 14th with Schumacher, but will Alonso try anything on Jackson at the end? And it looks like they have pulled out a bit of a gap now. And I think HAAS have done it. I think they've played an absolutely wonderful team game. Jackson defending with a damaged car for his teammate, and out of the final corner, Alonso is too far behind. HAAS have played an absolute masterstroke in team play. Schumacher 14th, Jackson on his debut in 15th place, and HAAS have done wonderfully despite their car. That is a great effort for HAAS team, who have an undeveloped car for the season, won't be putting any updates on the car, resourcing for 2022, but at the front it is vintage status quo once again. Lewis Hamilton not dominating in any sense of the word, was behind Red Bull for the majority of the race, but Red Bull making a bit of an error really in the terms of the tyre strategy. Max Verstappen did get the fastest lap on that lap, and then we'll have an extra point, so that's 16 points for Verstappen, but Mercedes just ran the strategy better than Red Bull today. Carlos Sainz great on his Ferrari debut up in P5 after passing Bottas early on, but he lost out. Lando Norris, a wonderful recovery to P8 from P16 on the grid. Yuki Tsunoda getting his first point on the board in Formula 1 in the AlphaTauri. Mick Schumacher and Aiden Jackson, the other rookies, ahead of two men with 3 world champions between them in Fernando Alonso and Kimi Raikkonen, with Giovinazzi getting ahead of Raikkonen late on, and Russell and Raikkonen with the only lapped cars. HAAS stayed on the lead lap. Here's the championship standings for you. Lewis Hamilton, of course, with a 7-point lead over Bottas. That extra point for Verstappen could come crucial at the end of the season. But once, like we said, Red Bull just not playing it right with the strategy today. They got the strategy wrong, that's for sure. And as you can see, no points for everyone else. And Nicholas Latifi, the only retiree. So let's have a look at the constructors then. As expected, it is Alpine that get ahead of HAAS. Mercedes on 40, the full 40 plus points. Red Bull getting the extra point for fastest lap. And what a race. Mercedes played it a blinder on the strategy. Vintage Lewis Hamilton as he closes in on 100 wins. What a race. It's definitely going to be closer than previous years though. But Red Bull need to get the strategy right next time out in Imola. We'll see you then.